forces you.
Tearing up.
Everyone. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to this month's Audio Production Town Hall. You'll find us here every month talking about things of interest to all of us audio nerds. We'll talk about, in any given month, things like mixing or mastering, the business of dance music, cool software, cool hardware, the latest developments in the industry, and always with cool people to talk to. So we hope you'll plan on joining us every month on Monday of week 4, and if you can't make it in real time, at the same link you'll find a recording afterwards. So let's get started. I'm Brian Smithers. I am the program director of audio production, and today we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest features in Pro Tools. With me today is Gil Gowing, a solutions specialist from Avid. Friend of 25 years and a great friend and asset to Full Sail University for all of that time. And welcome to the show, Gil.
Thanks for having me,
really excited to be here today.
Super. We always learn something new when you visit campus, so something to always look forward to. Before we dive into Pro Tools, can you give us just a little bit of background about yourself, how you got to where you are now, and what moves you and inspires you?
Sure. So ever since I can remember, back when I was very, very little, wanted to be a musician. That was like, I remember seeing pictures of me 2 years old with, toy guitar, drum set, and always performing. Had a younger aunt that kind of was coming up during the day, during that time period, was into modern, pop and rock music and things, and I just kind of latched on to what she was about. So that was always something that I really wanted to do. Played in band and got to learn how to play guitar in high school and going on up into college. When I got to college, MIDI was basically just coming out at that point in the early 80s, and was a guitar player, but I just really kind of gravitated towards that whole technical side of things and just kind of jumped in with both feet and never have really looked back. Unfortunately, back then, places like Full Sail didn't exist, so I basically had to learn through, going and living at bookstores and at the magazine stand and buying every single technology magazine I could every month and just devouring all that, because not only did schools like this didn't exist, but the internet didn't exist. So it was just about just getting as much information as I could. I went into music retail, worked at Guitar Center for a number of years, and was really able to learn a lot about all the different facets of recording, live audio, and all those type of things through that. And then in 2000, I was hired by DigiDesign. That was our former name before we were absorbed under the Avid umbrella. And I've kind of been with the Avid DigiDesign family ever since. And it's just, I'm every day happy that I'm involved in this and can, be out there showing people what they can do and how creative they can be with the tools that we make.
That's very cool. I actually met you on my first day at work at Full Sail back in 2000.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
We were installing Pro Tools 5.1 in our lab. So one of the things that you do, well, I guess probably the main thing that you do is explain stuff to people.
Yes.
To college professors, to students, to industry professionals, to all sorts of trade shows.
Right.
Which means that you are constantly learning new stuff, new versions of the software, new versions of the hardware, new features, new workflows. As a musician, at some point you had to learn about the audio post side of things and all of those techniques and workflows and what are the needs of the industry and so forth. And I think that process should be very near and dear to the hearts of our students, because you must be very highly skilled at learning new stuff and integrating it into things that you already know. How do you approach that?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is to have the right attitude. You can't go about thinking that you just know everything, because you don't. And I've been doing this over 40 years now, and to me, it's always moving forward with what I don't know and just constantly wanting that information. And today, with the internet the way it is, you can YouTube or whatever, you can just jump on and just go down rabbit holes of all kinds of different things that it is, if you're excited about it, you're going to want to retain that information. But to me, it's always a journey to still be learning. Yes, I talk to a lot of people out there and I explain how to use Pro Tools, this, that, and the other. But on the other side of things, like for instance, if I go and I'm doing a private thing with a big name industry person, and I'm showing them something and they're really excited about learning something new, guarantee you 2 or 3 things that they do during that conversation, I'm going to say, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. And then I basically stick that back in the back of my brain, and I have that as part of my repertoire then. So you just always have to be out there and want to be at that student to keep learning information.
Every time you come and talk to our faculty to talk about, you know, what's new or things that we should keep our eyes out for, you're facing some really detailed questionings from some people who
Absolutely.
A, know a lot, and B, have a variety of different perspectives. And every time you do that, I'm kind of feeling guilty that you're on the hot seat, and simultaneously just being really amazed and stunned that you never falter.
Well,
and if there's ever anything that you don't know, you always say, I will find that out and get back to you.
Because
and then
I don't know everything. Absolutely. Yeah. I you know, because I can't be in every single other person's position to what they need for what their workflows and things are. And I mean, I know a lot, but I absolutely don't know everything. And that's something that I genuinely want to be able to do. If somebody asks me a question and I don't know, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to find out what that answer is.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, Gil. And I don't want to get all preachy, but seriously, to our students watching, this could be the most important thing that you learn this week, is how important it is for you to have an appetite for learning new stuff, because people are going to expect you to be the person in the room that knows what's going on. And that only happens if you've got that kind of an attitude toward learning new stuff.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, I mean, back when I was coming up, I mean, you only had so many things, so many methods of being able to learn that. I mean, it was either you were able to talk to somebody that knew what was going on beforehand. A lot of the tools that we considered just, you know, like having Pro Tools on a laptop, I mean, that was not a reality back 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And so you had to do whatever you could if that's what you wanted to do to be able to learn this information, and it wasn't easy to come by. And today, if you don't know something, I mean, you've got a little gadget in your pocket that within usually 10 seconds you can find the answer.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. But that's a good thing, because that you're always on top of, like you said, if you're the person in the room that's supposed to be in the know, and you're supposed to be, you know, taking a session to that next level, or, you know, if you're doing recording engineering, you've got a band in there, you don't want to be slow, but you can't know everything, but you have methods to be able to quickly think on your feet, figure out what those things are, and keep moving forward. And I think always having that attitude that you don't know everything and that you always want to continue to learn is definitely a good trait to have.
Absolutely. All right, so let's dive into what's new in Pro Tools. We've had a new version just a month and a half ago.
Yep.
Another one 6 months before that. I want to say to everyone watching that if you have questions as we go, please share them in the chat. And as we go, we'll call out those questions and try to address them
hopefully
in real time. Yeah, real time. And if we don't know, we'll find it out. In fact, I think we may have a question already.
We do. So Tim is asking, what are some great ways to study for the specialist and professional exams?
The Pro Tools?
The certification exams, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say something here. I'm going to take off my Avid badge. The best ways to study for those Avid certification exams is to learn the book. I mean, you could learn Pro Tools all day long on your own and know every keyboard shortcut there is to know or whatever, but these books are designed to take you through pretty exacting workflows.
Yep.
And you need to know what those steps are, because that's what those answers to those questions are. So I learned this when, I was actually one of I think it was like 16 of us were guinea pigs when the first certification book we did back in 2002, and you know, a bunch of hotshot Pro Tools people that were better than me, but once again, I was good at devouring that information and stuff, and only 2 of us passed the test.
Yep.
But you really need to understand what the book is saying. I mean, like I said, I mean, having just, you know, on your own Pro Tools chops is great, but if you want those certifications and get those high scores, you really got to dive deep into those books.
Yep, that's awesome. I've been Pro Tools certified since about the same time, and a certified instructor for most of that time, and my answer would be the same. So there are kind of 2 sides to it. One is that all of our students need to qualify to even take the exams by their performance in audio workstations and advanced audio editing techniques. And that's where we get the hands-on side of things. You've demonstrated that you have a good knowledge of working in Pro Tools, and by qualifying there, that earns you the right to take the exam. But as you say, the exam is based on the book, or in this case, the materials as they're presented in Avid Learning Central, which our students have these days. And there are practice quizzes spread throughout that curriculum. So be sure that you devour those quizzes and be sure that you can answer them not just by flipping through the pages, but actually answer them without anything referenced. And if you miss something, learn it so that you'll never miss it again. And by the time you've done that, then you should be ready to take the exam.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks for that question. Appreciate your answer.
All right, so getting into Pro Tools, what's new kind of with Pro Tools? Like Brian said earlier, we introduced a new version, 2025.6, about a month and a half ago. Prior to that, where we had liked to be on like an every 3 or 4 month kind of cadence, bunch of stuff came up. We kind of bit off more than we could chew with this last release, with a bunch of things that we had to change a lot of deep technologies to get it to all work. So it took a little bit longer with that one. And even so, there was a bunch of really great stuff in the release from last October as well. And we'll be talking about, I'll kind of try to go through some of all that. Mostly geared towards music production today, although that's one thing about Pro Tools is we kind of have become a tool, an audio and production tool for all people. Whereas there's a lot of DAWs out there that are very focused in on either music production or their post-production or live or whatever. Pro Tools is kind of the everything DAW, and we have, you know, from a singer-songwriter that's never recorded anything in his entire life all the way up to, you know, mixing the biggest Marvel movies in the universe up there, everything in between. So we have to kind of balance what we do and how we kind of go about our how we add these features into Pro Tools and kind of have to divvy them up. So it makes sure all the different customers are getting taken care of. Now, one of the things that as of late, you know, with online services that have loops and things, being able to easily bring those into your project, something like Splice. It's, you know, in the past with Pro Tools, it's, you know, you've had Splice over here as this thing. You go and you search out loops, you find some things you might like, then you have to like bring them into Pro Tools. And then you listen to them against, once you get them into Pro Tools, and you can kind of listen to them there, see if they work or not, and then it's just back and forth. Well, one of the things that we've done here recently is worked with Splice, and we now have Splice integrated inside of Pro Tools with this last release.
That's great.
The really cool thing about this is that if you don't have an actual paid Splice subscription, when you download and install this version of Pro Tools, there is a Pro Tools version of Splice that you get into that you don't have to pay any extra for, but it'll only give you like a little small kind of sliver of example of some things that are there. There's definitely a lot more We were talking earlier, some of the students here at a certain level in their
In the music production degree
Yeah.
program, yeah.
Then there's a kind of an extended trial
Yep.
of the premium thing, so you pretty much get
Yep.
access to most everything. The really cool thing about the Splice integration is it basically shows up over, if you're familiar with Pro Tools, I know there's different levels of people and their experiences, but Pro Tools edit window, for the most part, normally had what we call a clip list over
Yep.
on the side. So any audio that was inside that particular session would show up over there. Well, we've made that a tabbed area now. And so one of the new tabs is a Splice integration, which allows you to log in, get to your actual Splice account, and then you can go in and start searching for things. So for instance, if we come back over here, another really quick thing I want to say before we jump into the Splice thing is we have an app for either iOS or Android called Avid Control.
Right.
Works on either tablets or phones, and is a great little free application that allows you to control Pro Tools or actually any Yukon-based software out there. So I personally like to use this because I don't like to clutter my screen with a big memory, the markers and memory locations window.
Yep.
And I actually can get to all my memory locations here on my phone. So I usually, for demos like this for speed, I've got a memory location with a whole different window configuration set up, so I can easily, quickly just hit a button, and boom, I'm now looking at a totally different view with different tracks and everything. To me, even working on productions and not doing demos, this is a really good thing to kind of have as a little workflow tip, is being able to set these different views up, and you can save these in templates or whatever and bring them in whenever you need to. All right.
Excuse me, but the ability to integrate window configurations with your memory locations is like way more powerful than a lot of people give it credit for. If you do a little bit of preparation in the background, you can really speed your workflow.
Absolutely, and to be honest with you, we weren't the first ones to think of this. Logic, back before Apple owned them and back in the eMagic days, before Pro Tools actually had MIDI in it, back in the mid-90s, I was a very deep Logic user because that's, if I wanted to sequence,
Yep.
that was one of the more powerful programs out there. And they had screen sets
Right.
in Logic that you can set up. And over time, we kind of borrowed from that and have added that into Pro Tools, which is, to me, is a huge thing because you can have totally different views. If you work on multiple monitors, you can have different windows show up in different places. Very, very powerful tool set to have in your toolkit.
Awesome.
All right, so I pulled this up. I've got a little percussion section here. Got a little drum machine beat with a little shaker tambourine thing going on, and I want some congas to go along with that. So now I can pull up the workspace browser and search my local sample library for things, but I mean, sometimes you need inspiration and you need to go find something else that you haven't used over and over again. I think that's a really great thing about Splice. So I've already logged into Splice here. In fact, you come over here to the settings, it shows you how you're logged in. You can manage your subscription and everything from here. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type in conga loop or loops, hit return, and then it's going to find some things. And the really cool thing about this integration is I've got a little 4-bar loop going on in Pro Tools. I can start that and then come over here. Loop picks right up, plays exactly where it knows what beat you're on, so it's all in time. Now the first thing I'm noticing right away is all of these conga loops that it's brought up are straight, and what I'm doing is swing.
Right.
So I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to add swing to this, and now get something a little bit more appropriate for what we got going on here. So from there, I can just take this, I can drag it out onto our track, place it in, and put it in the track. I can pull up my effects in, so it's a little bit less reverb. And it's all locked time. I don't have to do anything. It's all right there. You know, Splice obviously keeps up with, you know, your usage and everything, and you can always kind of see kind of what's going on. When you bring something in, it will then kind of catalog that off to your library. So anything that you brought up before, there's a library folder tab there that you can go into, kind of see what you've been working with as well. Another really cool thing about Splice is that you can like take a loop from Pro Tools and you can drag it into Splice, and then it will analyze that with its AI tools.
That's cool.
And then find something that's appropriate to what that is, and so you can add on, augment, layer, whatever you want to.
That's awesome. I like the fact that this is built on the ability that was already built into the Workspace browser to actually audition local loops in time with your session. You don't have to learn a new set of features in order to take advantage of this. It takes the existing workflow that you've got from the Workspace browser and applies it to Splice by enabling you to actually communicate with Splice online in real time.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Another thing is, if we get rid of this search thing, so if you're kind of interested in what's kind of going on, you can go in with some of the tags there. You can go in and find out what's just included with the version that you get with Pro Tools, or so you can kind of see, okay, are these things what I want, or do I want to get in and dive into a paid version that's going to give me a lot more access at that point.
Right. So you can determine the kind of level of access that that matters to you in terms of, you know, what kind of subscription you want to use.
Yes.
And the cool thing about that is that by including a trial level of subscription, anyone who wants to find out whether this is for them has the ability to learn how to use the feature, to get a feel for what splice loops sound like and whether they actually relate to your style of production, and determine whether this is something that you want to spend additional money on or not, or wait until, you know, a client wants you to, you know, is going to pay you to spend additional money on it.
Now, and something else, now that this kind of functionality that we have these hooks inside of Pro Tools, I'm not saying it's coming, but it's a possibility that we might explore later on, is obviously this is all great with music production, loops, and those type of things, but from a post-production standpoint, being able to access sound effects libraries in the same way that you don't have to have terabytes and terabytes of sound effects libraries online, that once again, you're reusing all the time and things get to be mundane and boring. You have, you know, possibility of accessing a number of different online libraries that you can go and find whatever you might be looking for, you know, some type of post project.
That's great. That's really powerful, because getting to really understand the workflows of how accessing sound effects libraries work is a thing in itself, and also it's kind of in the process of changing as we get away from the old days of delivering sound effects on CDs or hard drives to everything being, you know, delivered online these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we actually have a question about Splice.
Okay. I will say up front, I am no Splice expert. We've just gotten this in the last couple months, so I'll try to answer the question, and if not, like I said, I will try to find out, and I'll get back with you, and you can maybe give the answer next time.
Awesome.
What's the question?
I believe I may have read it wrong. It might just be about splitting the audio. So Tim asks, now you're able to split that audio clip from Splice into a mono file like you would a normal audio file?
Once you get it inside of Pro Tools, then it basically, it's now been transferred from Splice into your local Pro Tools session, and then you can do with it however you want to. I mean, you can take it and split it into two mono files. You can, you know, have that come back down, create a stereo file to a mono track where it combines the two. I mean, you have all those, any options you have in Pro Tools at that point it's all fair game, because once the audio is inside of Pro Tools, it's just audio.
Awesome. I'm going to riff on that for just a second, because the idea of working with stereo and mono files is a thing that comes up in our classes pretty frequently. So if this is actually a stereo file where it actually has some leftness and rightness to it, then you don't want to just take one side of it and think that that's adequate. You might want to take it and pan them so that it's a narrower stereo file by panning in from hard left and right. Or you may want to bounce it to a mono file if you really need it to be mono for some reason. There are various ways that you can approach this, but the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, as you say, does it really need to be stereo? And how stereo is it to begin with, because that determines how I'm going to proceed from there. So I'm glad that you're thinking along those lines. That's important to your final output, but you got to do some careful listening first before you determine your next step.
All right. So I think I'm just gonna stay in Pro Tools for right now, and let's talk about something that most other DAWs have had for a very, very long time, and Pro Tools had for a long time, and then we didn't have it for a very long time, and they're just now getting it back, which is basically being able to take an audio clip on the timeline and drag it into some type of sample-based VI. Yeah. This has been something that obviously we lost this a long time ago when we went 64-bit at Pro Tools 11 back in 2013, so 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And we finally got a single drag and drop back with 2410 back last October. And for those that aren't familiar with this, so I've got Groove Cell. This is a little sampler drum VI that's included with Pro Tools. So if you have Pro Tools, you can download this from your account and install it and have access to it. And it comes with, obviously, a number of different library files, but also gives you the ability now to sample your own drums and drag them in. So basically, prior to 25.6, which is the latest version, with that, you could come over here, and we'll bring Groove Cell back, and you could grab a single file and you could drag it onto a either a cell on a drum machine style VI, or onto the timeline, or the key mapping of a regular sampler program. But you could only do one thing at a time.
Right.
Which, not too bad. One cool thing about this, though, is, I will say, is that when you drag the file from the timeline in, it actually commits the audio based on what plugins and processing you have on the track. So it's not just bringing in just the raw sample, but it's actually, if you've got EQ, compression, distortion, delay, whatever, if it's on that track, not part of the SYN, but if it's actually on that track, we use our commit function to render the file first and then bring it in.
Nice.
Now, if you basically, prior to this latest version 25.6, if I tried to bring this in, it would basically commit those 4 pieces of audio, those clips, with the spaces in between down as a single audio, and it would trigger the whole thing if you had either, the release, or you just held down the note. It would play all 4 of those pieces of audio just like they were on the timeline.
Right.
With Pro Tools 25.6, we've now added the ability to bring in multiple clips. Now, it's a little bit of, there's a little bit of a learning curve, because depending on what tools and what you know about the Pro Tools kind of cursor tools, if you use Smart Tool all the time, you would need your grabber, but just a grabber with a selection isn't going to do it. So what you have to do, and I'm going to use the great little Apple thing of zooming in and hit the wrong keys. That's not good. All right, We'll zoom in here real quick up here to the top. And with the grabber tool, you have a number of different grabber tools. You got the regular time grabber tool.
Yep.
You got a separation grabber tool where if you make a selection and you use this grabber tool, it will actually cut the audio out and
Yep.
make an individual clip out of that. In this case, what we need is what we call the object grabber tool, which basically is a grabber tool that lets you make multiple individual selections. So like you see, it turns into the little plus sign or little
Yep.
selector tool. And if I click off that and I select those, you'll see that each one of those now is highlighted in yellow, saying
Right.
that these are individual clips. Now, once I have those done, I can drag them onto a cell in Groove Cell. It's going to go through and it's going to process each one of those clips individually as a commit. And then it's going to bring me up a little menu. And it wants to know, do I want to spread them out over individual keys? Do I want to bring these in as 4 velocity zones on a single key that I drug to? Do I want to layer them together where they actually will all play, if your sampler supports that, want to play them all with a single note? Or do I want a round robin? So round robin, for those who aren't familiar with samplers, when you play a note in succession without round robin, it plays the same sample over and over again. It sounds very machine gunny, right?
Yeah.
With round robin, this will basically randomly take samples that you've designated in this round robin and randomly play them with each succession of note you're playing.
Right.
So it doesn't have as much, depending on how many round robins deep you are, hopefully it won't sound like the machine gun effect.
Right.
In this case, I just want to spread these out over 4 different pads. So I just hit spread, and now I've got those 4 different samples on those
Nice.
first bottom 4 pads.
So the interesting thing about this is that all of the terminology that you just used about how the samples should be loaded are things that we study in our sequencing technology class, which is in Logic.
Logic's, like I said, back in
Logic
the day,
is
I
great.
was big into
Yeah.
Logic before we got MIDI into Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And there's obviously things, and that's one thing. I mean, obviously I work for Avid, and Pro Tools is very near and dear to my heart, and it's like my main application. But, I mean, if you look at my dock, I mean, I've got Logic, I've got Live, I've got Bitwig,
Yeah.
I've got Studio One, I've got Nuendo, I've got Cubase. All applications are just a tool set in your toolbox.
Exactly.
And the big thing, like I said earlier, is Pro Tools started out as an audio program, and everything else started out as a MIDI sequencer.
Yep.
So obviously we're not going to do, I mean, we keep adding things and do more and more with MIDI, and we want to get deeper and deeper into that creative toolkit. But there's obviously other things other DAWs do that we just, like with Live, for instance, we don't, we have Sketch, which
Right.
is a kind of a cell-based loop
Right.
kind of thing, but it is a separate piece of app that runs in the background that you can kind of flow back and forth, but it's not the same thing as Ableton Live or what you've got in Logic. And those are great tools for certain types of genres of music. And I use them all the time, but usually, eventually, what I usually do is I will take the audio or those things and I will make them individual audio tracks. And then I bring them back into Pro Tools where I have access to my control surfaces for deep mixing, the really accurate automation, all those things that Pro Tools brings together. And everything, I think, has a purpose and can work together. So I think it's great that people are learning to use Logic, and it's great that we're actually trying to use the terminology
Yeah.
and not trying to reinvent the wheel. So
Right.
it actually, when you do go between these things, you don't get lost and have to relearn a whole vernacular based on this one program or this one program over here.
It's funny because people sometimes come at the issue of multiple DAWs as though there's supposed to be some kind of
it's
turf
fight.
war or
Yeah.
something, right? but what you find is that while people have preferences, and sometimes some really deeply held preferences, we all end up working in a variety of different programs depending on the circumstances, depending on the client, depending on who we're collaborating with.
Yep. Well, and it depends on what you're wanting to do. Like I said, while we do have some MIDI things in Pro Tools, we don't have everything. And one thing I'm really big into, and not sure this probably maybe go over everybody's head, but something near and dear to my heart is MPE or MIDI polyphonic expression, where each note has the ability to really morph and do different things. Pro Tools doesn't support that, so I have to be in other programs if I really want to dig deep with my Linstrument or my Osmos or any of, I mean, I pretty much at this point, I think I'm kind of a glutton. I have almost any MPE controller out there just because and they all do different things and they all are different expressing. It's just a different instrument, different tool for different things. And I hope at some point soon, fingers crossed, that we'll actually have MPE in Pro Tools as well.
That would be cool. Awesome. I love this. This is a very powerful thing to be able to do in GrooveCell like that.
Yep, absolutely. Some other MIDI things that we've done recently is, let me see if I can't read my little bitty things here. All right, we'll go here. So one thing Pro Tools has always been known for on the audio side is how we use playlists.
Right.
I mean, not everybody has playlists or they call it something different, but most people, how they use playlists and comping, it's probably not as powerful as the way we do it in audio. And for a long time, while you could kind of have some playlists with MIDI, you couldn't use our editing or our comping model.
Right.
And with 24.10 from last year, we added playlists with instrument and MIDI tracks. And so now you can come over here and we switch to playlist view. And now you see that the multiple playlists show up down below. I can easily, let's turn back on my smart tool. I can easily come down here and make a selection on a certain one of the playlists. It will automatically go with a selection down on that playlist. It will then play from that playlist instead of the main track. And I can easily then just promote up to the playlist and quickly, just like I would do with audio, I can quickly make an overall track out of multiple MIDI performances. And you can see that that's what we've done up here because we've got it color coded. You can see all the different colors and what tracks they came from. So that's a really, really huge thing for us is making our MIDI more, the editing of our MIDI more like our audio model,
Right.
which is super popular. And we've got some other things that we'll be doing hopefully in the next coming releases that will go even beyond this and how we do editing with MIDI and stuff. So
That's very cool. It's great to see that coming to MIDI tracks. So one of the things about MIDI is that controllers are part of the overall MIDI stream
Right.
per channel. Is there any ability here to have controllers apply across the different playlists, or are they separate by playlist?
They're separate by playlist, and when you copy that playlist clip up to the main playlist, it copies its controller information. You know, and you could probably argue back and forth, no, I don't want that, yes, I do want that. But for the most part, if you're trying to take a performance that you had controller information there on, you're probably going to want that to follow what the performance was on the playlist.
Right.
If you want to go back and do something different, then you can go back to that playlist, find the controller information, just copy it, and then put it back on the main playlist if you want to. But when you're doing this playlist comping, all of your controller information, when you're dealing with MIDI with its velocity, pitch bend, modulation, or whatever other controller information you might have, is going to come with that particular playlist performance.
Right. And if you understand everything that we just said, You did very well in sequencing technology, and if you don't, you probably haven't gotten to sequencing technology yet. But that makes perfect sense because MIDI is not audio.
Right.
In audio, you've got the audio clip, and then you've got automation information that is actually separate from that as part of the track. Whereas in this case, MIDI volume, MIDI expression, all other continuous controllers are just part of the MIDI data stream, which goes clip by clip, and in this case, obviously, because of that, playlist by playlist.
Right. So now we have the ability to, on a MIDI track, you can take that either selection of the whole track and you can commit or freeze that information and you can make that audio.
Right.
Now, something that's been around actually a few years, but I don't think a whole lot of people still really know about it, is the ability to go the other way, which is, I mean, this isn't something new, but I think it's a nice and creative thing. So let's say you've got a particular, set of audio clips here, and I want to basically make that into MIDI. So then I can have, say, those notes being played by VI. Well, it's just as easy as being able to select audio clips and drag it down onto an instrument track. And then in the background, we have Melodyne Essential that comes with Pro Tools.
Yep.
And that basically goes through, does all the calculation in the background, converting that audio data into MIDI. And then once it gets done, then you'll have an actual MIDI track. And it's being a little slow.
Well, a lot of the time, in the studio, we'll actually overdub an instrumental part sometimes multiple times in order to thicken up the sound. And this is a way that in post-production you could actually thicken up the sound by taking a performed instrumental part, dropping it into a synth, and blending it with the original track in order to create a more complex sound.
Absolutely. So we have this little kind of single note guitar line. All right. Well, I brought that down, and what we've got on this instrument track is we've got a contact player, which we actually have kind of entered into back at the end of last year. We entered into an agreement with Native Instruments that you get latest version of contact player and several of their instruments and some of the things that we've actually curated from our own libraries, and that is part of your overall Pro Tools experience with the plugins and stuff you get. So, you know, back in the day we had structure in the Air instruments, and you still get structure free, but obviously Contact is a much more modern platform as far as the sampler platform goes. And we pulled up one of our Pro Tools essential instruments. Got a tenor sax here, so now if I play them both together,
exactly.
Now that little slide thing is not quite a note you want on the tenor sax, so I'm just going to go over here and double click on that and delete it. And there we go.
Nice.
So easy ways to take audio data, take it to MIDI, or like I said, the other way would be to, let me find the locator here. We've got a little in fact, it's basically, we've got a couple of MIDI plugins. So that's something else that we've introduced in the last year and a half or so, which is kind of another foray down into that creative process. And I know we're about to run out of time, so this will be the last thing we talk about, and I'll just want to do this quick. But we've got some very basic Avid MIDI plugins that you get that will affect MIDI data, or we've got a number of third parties that we partnered with, that things that you get with your Pro Tools subscription or with your maintenance package. A couple of those are this Tat, I think it Tat-Hat. It's a little kind of takes a piece of audio, take it in there, and then you can like set different time settings, velocity, pitches, and then it kind of comes up with a randomization of notes. Now, once again, because this was swing, this doesn't do swing for whatever reason, so we added another MIDI plugin called Groove Shaper Lite, which is a arpeggiator that you can actually swing. So basically what we did was we loaded a single note acoustic guitar sample into a contact player, and then have these two MIDI plugins with no, basically the Tat-Hat plugin is going to just be driving some notes, and then the Groove Shaper is going to swing them.
Oh, wow.
So basically now you have now, that's really cool, and you can do some interesting things and kind of change it up. But, well, let's say, well, okay, that's great, but I really want to, like, just make sure that that's some audio data that I don't want to be moving around or any kind of MIDI stuff. I like what that's doing, and I want to make that an actual audio file.
Right.
So I could either come over here and right-click and commit.
Right.
Up here, freeze it, but commits, it actually will then actually make editable audio out of it versus freezing. Now, something else that has been there for a long time in Pro Tools, but you know, maybe students here at Full Sail do, but I've talked to a lot of people out in the world, and they still just don't. They had no idea that you could do this. If you come over here to the plugins, you can right-click on a plugin, and you could say commit up to this insert. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, let's say, all right, I got the two MIDI plugins and the VI, but then I've got like EQ or compression and stuff that I'm not sure that I want to be written in or rendered into the file. I just want the VI with the controller, the MIDI plugins. So I just right-click on Contact and say commit up to this insert.
Right.
Tell it to. I just want it to do the edit selection because I don't want it to try to look for 9 minutes worth of silence and try to commit it. You could choose what gets committed, and then what do you want to do with your source track? Well, with this, I don't want to delete it, but I want to hide it and make it inactive. So if I do want to go back to it, I can, but I don't want to see it anymore. So I hit OK, and a couple seconds, and now I have a bounced audio file that still has my EQ and it still has my reverb send.
Wow. Nice.
Once again, that little thing has been there for a while, but you know, it's one of those things where it's often overlooked, and that's super powerful. I mean, a lot of other programs, it's either all or nothing. And with this, you can choose where in the signal chain you want to actually commit or freeze, because you can do the same thing with freeze. Or if it's like multi-out drum plugin, you can actually commit just the drum plugin and then do individual tracks with any of the outputs that you have.
Wow.
So just one step, it's all done.
Wow. I want to bring this, you're right, we're nearly out of time here, but I kind of want to bring this full circle to where we started talking about how you approach learning new things. I don't know if I will ever use the workflow that you just described to me. What I do know is that by showing me that workflow, you showed me 4 or 5 different features that I now understand how they work and when I might want to use them and how they work together.
Right.
I don't need to necessarily memorize that workflow, but I've got a rationale for where these things would actually apply.
And who knows, something might come up someday. It's like, oh, I remember that. I can do that.
Yeah, like this, the ability to commit up to a given insert. It's like, I can immediately think of, you know, multiple other ways that we would use that.
Right.
So, wow, I wish we had another hour to talk, Gil. It's, it always goes by too quickly, but we really appreciate you taking the time to share these things with us today.
Absolutely.
And I'll have to send hex on your calendar to convince you to come back and join us for another town hall.
I would love to. Just let me know when, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen. Thank you.
Super. Really appreciate that. So thank you all for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure talking with Gil Gowing from Avid about what's new in Pro Tools. We hope that you've enjoyed this. We hope you will, I almost said like and subscribe. No, I hope that you will tell your classmates that this was time well spent, and that you'll plan on joining us month after month. You never know what's going to come up from one month to the next. Before we go, I'd like to thank this month's AVT class, Audiovisual Technologies class, for their support. It's been a great pleasure working with you. You may not have realized that behind the scenes you have fellow students producing this event, stem to stern, and we really appreciate all the production support. You've really made us feel welcome here, along with course director John Cost. Thanks for doing this month after month after month. We'll be here again next month, the 4th Monday of the September term, and look forward to seeing you then. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.